Welcome to Real Talk with Shereitta, the show that brings you the voices of all things self-improvement and the entrepreneurship grind. Each week, we'll deliver the best hard-hitting stories from real raw entrepreneurs, new and heavy in the game. My podcast is all about self-improvement and just giving tips and tools and highlighting entrepreneurs out there who have went through that journey of rebuilding their self, their character, thinking about their morals, putting that first before anything, and having a creative passion behind what they're doing. So welcome today. I have a special guest with me. I want to thank everybody for joining and tuning in. The name of today's show is basically from the game of sports to the game of life. Our guest is a ex NFL player, Darrin Charles, who has experienced those things, and he's here and kind of going to tell us a little bit about what he's doing, what he's trying to achieve, and some of the experiences that he's had from transitioning from, like the title says, the game of sports to the game of life. And one of the things that brought me to him was the fact that he talks a lot about self improvement and spirituality, which I feel like that's kind of key to anyone's success or trying to just move forward in life, period. So I want to welcome Darrin to the show.
Hi, how
Hi, how
are
you
you?
doing?
I'm
I'm
doing wonderful.
fine.
Very happy to be here.
Thanks. Me too. I'm glad you could join us today.
Of course, of course. The opportunity just to provide some perspective to people, coach them along, encourage them is something that is part of my mission. So this is a great opportunity to continue that journey.
Awesome, awesome. So, of course, the title is from the game of sports to the game of life. You're an ex NFL player. Can you kind of tell us a little bit what brought you to transition from that, or you know, what what kind of inspired you to transition and start following your dreams?
Yeah, that's a very good question and a loaded question. I think the best way to approach that is growing up, I found sports to be an outlet for me. It was a place for me to get rid of all the excess energy that I had, and fortunately, I found success with it early, and it was a space where I myself was encouraged and could explore that a little bit more, community with other kids or other young men, and of course, men as well. And I was fortunate to get a full scholarship in college, and I had a brief stint actually in the NFL. So I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit more, but I went up there, touched that dream, and then the transition for me was, what else is there in life for me, and what will it take for me to get there? And so that's been an ongoing exploration.
That's cool. When you said that, that was one of the things that stuck in my head after the conversation that we had earlier. Like a lot of people chase, we chasing success, we chasing that next aspiration or that next obstacle in life, and then once you get there, one of the things that you said to me that stuck and resonated with me was like, okay, I got here, so now what? So can you tell me a little bit, like, what is that experience like to reach that success and be like, you know what, this isn't really what I want to be doing?
Going right for the home run, huh? Right off the bat, I like that. That's excellent. Um, Yeah, for me, like as I said, I played 4 years in college, and my first dream was to be a professional athlete. And I really didn't know what sport that was going to be, whether it was track and field, basketball, or football, which is obviously what I played. And football was a space and a sport that came to me later in life, towards the end of my high school career. Suddenly, I found that I was really good at this, and I was being rewarded for it. And so, of course, it encouraged me forth to continue that. And working through my college years, it only escalates from there. You're putting in more effort, you're honing your skills and figuring out, where you kind of exist in the landscape of all athletes, and certainly those in your position. As my college career progressed, I began having this feeling or this understanding or this desire for uncovering more of who I am. I had spent most of my life in sports from a young age, so there was a lot of this outward reaching for outward goals, and of course, there's a lot of physicality. There's a lot of perception, spatial awareness, and all these other skills. But I felt for a longing for an understanding of my inner world. So as I kind of got towards the peak of this, of reaching my dream in the NFL, I started having an even more heightened sensation of, well, who am I outside of this sport, outside of these X's and O's and these prescribed games that I've more or less been playing and excelling in. And so I had the opportunity. I signed with an NFL team, and I like to say that I touched it. I put my finger on it and completed that journey. And I think part of that completion was realizing that in achieving that, I simultaneously became more or less at peace with that journey and felt that I needed to move in another direction. So, the transition as well as the achievement was a hand in hand thing.
So what would you say, like, kind of inspired you and encourages you along the way to continue, like, making these decisions to not only better yourself but to help others and reach back and to kind of help others along that journey?
Yeah, I come from a family predominantly raised by a single mother. I have two other brothers. Both of them are larger than me. I'm quite a big guy. I'm about 6'6", 6'7", and of course they're bigger and wider, and they're athletic as well. So I say that because my mother had a hard time raising us boys, and she was the one that we look to as young men for not only our caregiver, but that love, that space of love and acceptance. And as we talked about a bit in our previous conversation, I think there's something in young men who want to step up to the plate and take on leadership roles, or if another parent's not in the picture as much, to kind of soften the blows of the day-to-day life. And I think for me, it was realizing that I had value in the world. That was kind of the first thing. Who am I outside the world of my family? And so getting those rewards through athletics and the appreciation and more community and seeing more possibility for the self, for myself, that's really what encouraged me through the stages of my life. And I think that really goes for anybody who finds encouragement in anything. I think the more people are supported, the more they will flourish in certain areas. And then with that, and this certainly applies to me, I really wanted to. I always saw a distant vision of myself, and part of that distant vision was something that was coming through me, a feeling that I had that I could aspire to and get to. And oftentimes, I didn't necessarily believe that I would be able to get to these levels, because sometimes, my dreams were so far off in the distance. Here's a great example. I remember watching Notre Dame football back when I was a real young kid. I must have been 8 or 9 years old, and there was a great wide receiver by the name of Rocket Ismail. And this was back when Notre Dame used to take their jerseys and tuck it up under their pads. And so, they had their ripped abs out and arms, and they were one of the best teams in the nation. And he was an excellent player. And I remember staring at that screen thinking, wow, I would like to be like that. And it's funny because I had loved basketball my entire life and thought I'd be an NBA player until, as I said, late in my high school days, suddenly football became this thing. So, um, I'm kind of getting all over the place, I think. So maybe I don't know if I answered it, but
You did, you did.
okay.
One
Yeah,
of
and
the
I
things.
and
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, yeah, to better answer the question. I think it's a desire to work your edges and improve. And I think when you're in a community such as athletics, where you're encouraged to run faster, jump further, um, catch more balls, perform better, and there's a lot of metrics and tangible things that you can get to. It's it's all about this ability to improve, and that's why multiple sport athletes tend to perform better in athletics in general, because it's a way of developing and honing skills that aren't particular to one space or place. And that's why I think athletes are particularly suited to be successful in life as well. So
I like that. One of the things you mentioned and what we touched bases on was the youth. Like, how important do you think it is for them to have like a support system while they're transitioning, trying to figure out these things as they're going from, high school to college to, the pros, when they're going through these, having these thoughts, and is it because that's one of the things we talked about, and we stuck on that
right.
conversation for a long time. Like, it's not like a big support system for, youth athletics or, professionals once they get to a certain point in life or in sports. It's like they're kind of pushed to the side, and there's not really a lot of resources out there to help them continuing to hone into those skills or, figure out what it is that they really want to do. So how
Yeah.
important do you feel that it is to have that support system in place as they're transitioning to those?
I don't think enough can be really said about support in general. I think we could all benefit at any stage in our life from support, whether that's a best friend, whether it's the nurturing parent type, or a friend who has the great wisdom. I think there's the ability to grab pieces of, just information from everybody. There's something to learn from every experience we have, as well as the people that are around us. Speaking, I guess, specifically to the niche of athletes in transition, I lived that experience of having an identity tied to some of the things that I did, and part of that identity wasn't just the game of sports and football itself. It was how I interacted with the world as it applied to sports. So the way I moved my body, the way I exercised my body, the way I took care of it, the way I had honed skills that applied to the game, whether my ability to catch the ball or run or different body positionings. It's the mental awareness and understanding concepts of the game. So identity stretches out into the fabric of all these spaces, and so you know, reaching the NFL and realizing that I needed to move in another direction, I too had that loss, like so many people did. It was a complete shift. My body physically needed to transition. I think I remember losing something like 15 pounds of muscle in like a 6 month period, which was a huge transition. So just in the mirror, that's how I looked and saw myself, which completely changed. And that ties into this aspect of never being big enough, right, for the game of football, putting on muscle, etc. So yeah, the identity component is a big thing, um, and there's not a lot of resources that athletes can point to understand what that transition looks like. Another big piece of that, I would say, just from the physicals, obviously the mental, the identity factor, and what skills do you have to offer to the world now? Because depending on when you completed, the game. For myself, I finished after college, so I'm 20 something years old, and I don't know what I'm going to do next with my life. Fortunately, I've completed my college degree, but athletes and myself were a little bit behind the game in that these other students that we went to university with, they're dedicated to their athletics already. Maybe they found a path that is more viable to the world immediately and directly. And so athletes have to go from this platform of sorts where they're on national television and, have a lot of pride and a lot of connection to receiving all of this energy, whether it's notoriety or opportunities, and then transitioning to a space of uh, maybe fading slowly into the background. And I think a lot of players want to hold on to that connection to the sport, which is natural. It's part of the story and the experience. And for me, I felt that it was important for me to allow the game of football to I guess, kind of recede into the background a little bit. I needed to allow that part and that chapter of my life to exist as it did, but really start to begin and shape myself and my life for what my future may look like. And of course, at the time, no, you don't know. Like in this moment, I don't know what my future looks like. If I look back in that moment and in that transitionary period, I had no idea that I'd be in the space that I am in now. So it takes faith. I think it takes information gathering and an adventure.
I like that. I like that
Mm,
answer. I like that
thank
and
you.
one. That's a good tip. That faith takes you a long way.
Yeah.
Always just having faith, believing in yourself and trusting the process, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for the athletes who may be listening, there are some skills that you learn from playing sports that you will apply to life, whether it's the flexibility in your body that you may use in other areas depending on what type of work you do, or just the term of flexibility and how you can incorporate that into your social interactions with people. Things begin to take a different shape in your life when you begin to continue to be a student of life. And I think that's the big opportunity. It's and what worked for me is going from being an athlete, which is predominantly where the time is spent, right? Where universities want you spending your time focused on that, to then making a decision to become a student again of life. And I think that's where the opportunity lies.
I like that. So I'm big on like school. So I have two younger kids that play sports. And sports is like their life. And
Mm,
one of the things that I'm always stressing to them is like, there may not come a time where you can always play football. So you always have to have in the back of your mind. And like you said, nurture those other skills or other things like passions that you like, to make sure that those things are still there, to know that just don't rely on football. And then sometimes I feel guilty for saying that to them, because if it's their passion, I want to make sure that I'm supporting them 100% like I should be. So that's one of the questions that I ask you for a parent or a football mom or moms of athletes, dads of athletes. What are some of the things that we can do to support our kids while they're going through these situations?
yeah, I think you really touched on one of the big things there. It's keeping their perspective open a bit, right? Um, the thing that makes people successful in sports is a narrow vision and a narrow focus and narrowed goals. And another way to look at that is, when you start a new journey in anything in life, it's this big thing and it's much bigger than you. And that's where you ultimately really want to start, right? With something that's so massive you don't even know how to tackle it. When we're young kids, we get introduced to the sport and then it's just fun and it just kind of comes along, right? But particularly in later stages, as a child maybe starts sports a little bit later, it's important to just allow them to be encouraged. Like, as you said, encourage the child, but also let them know that there needs to be a small window open in the back of their mind that um, these are the realities of life. And you can't really pick up on those things when you're in it. I know when I played it, it didn't matter. I would have ran through a brick wall for the game of football. And so there's no doubt that, young kids who love athletics and, your children, um, they're singularly focused on it and that's what they want to do. And to be successful, that's what it's going to take. And so, um, and when they love something, yeah, you just want to continue to encourage them. So to really answer your question, I think it's support them in any way that's possible, whether it's verbal encouragement, like, I'm proud of you, you played well today, um, you know, notice a great play, but also encourage them in school, remind them of the importance of some of these other things. And I think another huge thing is make sure they're saying their pleases and thank yous. I know that seems it's just such a simple thing, but for kids who are releasing all of this energy in athletics and who have such a narrow vision, sometimes they don't think about their impact on other people in their social circles. And I think some of that awareness comes in time. And what you don't want to do is be burning bridges that you'll ultimately be using later on. reminding them that those gestures, whether they're interacting with their local media or their school newspaper or people at large, that the way they interact reflects not only on the family, but on the opportunities that they'll see in the future. And an example of that is, when players retire or they finish in high school, some want to go into coaching or take those experiences that they love so much that they couldn't necessarily achieve the professional level, but they can still participate in that space in some shape or form. It's just making sure that options are open.
That I love those tips. Thank you. I'm gonna do a lot of that for real.
Good,
So,
good.
my next question would be, what advice would you give to someone like wanting to pursue a career or a similar path that what you're on right now?
Well, hmm. I think the best we can do is just to focus on where we're at and what our interests are. I think if we're old enough to have uh, perspective with the years that are behind us, we can see that each opportunity was a building block that led to currently where we're at in the moment. So I think we are fortunate with that ability to do so. Um, and for those who are just enthralled in what they're doing, that's great. I think just stay in that path and allow what feels right to come through. I think we're smarter than we believe. I think life works in a way that brings us to the opportunities that we need. But most importantly, I think certainly because we're in an age of information and it's readily available, Googleable, look on YouTube, etc., that if we want to uncover a career path or learn about experiences, you can gather enough information from either a single individual or a collective community and begin to filter that through your mind to understand what you're going to be expecting in the future. And I think that can alleviate some of the fear that is experienced in the unknown when you're wanting to have faith. So if it's entertainment that someone's after, I think particularly if you're an athlete that's transitioning, you're going to want to focus on growth and being a student first of all of life. There's going to be that transition from the game where you're going to want to read, catch up on information, learn tips and tools that are available in the spaces of interest you have. And particularly in that transition, when you have no idea what you want to do, it's important for you to explore. And exploration is a part of learning. And so there's just a lot of fun stuff to uncover.
I love how you talk about like self development and just genuinely working on you like so much. Like I don't think a lot of people understand how detrimental that is to just moving forward in life, period. Like the mindset like is everything. And that is a skill that I feel like it needs to be like a class that's taught in school.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of the work too. I know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think there's a thing with school. There's a perception of school where people, when we were in it, and I think every kid that's ever passed through schooling says, "What are we going to use this for?" Right? I'm never going to use this. And I think while there's certainly a number of students that would feel the same way about football or another game, like they enjoy it, they enjoy watching it, but can you really use that for the rest of your life? And again, it's that broad field of vision. We don't get to see all of the picture. We just get to participate really with the experiences that we're in right now. And that's why I encourage reading, because reading will unlock your mind into other nuances and experiences of life, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. It doesn't matter.
I
Yeah, I
was
think I'll.
about to ask, that was you reading my mind, my next question. Like you started a book club. I know this is like outside of the sports stuff, but we do talk about life too. Reading is fundamental. Continuing to feed your brain positive things. Like what inspired you to do that? I've been looking for other things to get into too, and reading seems like Like, what inspired you, and what's the purpose behind like your book club that you started?
Yeah, I'm laughing because it was a it's I started it because I realized there is so much that I do not know about life that I need to know. I needed to be equipped with the tools to move forth. I mean, uh, a great analogy would be, athletes have coaches, and there's going to be stages and spaces in our lives where we can't navigate it on our own. We're going to need somebody's help. And now if you need a therapist to work through some issues and some things, great, by all means. I go see a therapist often. And I have great friends that I can put issues and things in front of as well. And I look at books as a form of coaching as well. And so, yes, I did start a book club, and it's basically in the nonfiction space. And the reason why I started it was uh, because when I realized how much I didn't know and how much I wanted to be equipped in terms of relationships, navigating life, whether it's finances, social structures, networking, etc., we can only go so far ourselves before we reach outward for that. So I was digesting books for about a year very aggressively, maybe a book a day. And so then I realized, well, if I'm already doing this, why don't I just put this in the public sphere more or less? So I have an Instagram account, Darren's Book Club, and each month I'll select a book, I'll put it up there, maybe I'll put some quotes, and it's also a way to track my journey to see where I've been, but also I'm seeing now it's a resource that I can put out there and point people to. And I'm just a major advocate of learning in general. And I guess that ties really back into you know, being where I am in entertainment. If you want to head into the space, the more you can understand yourself and the world and the nature of relationships. Life is all about stories, and that's how we communicate. So you want to understand yourself and how you fit into the big picture, and books are a big part of that.
I agree. So, like, do they? I got tongue tied. Do they have to join your book club, or do they just follow you on Instagram and then like they read along with you, like for each book that you choose each month, or how does that go?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's free. It's open on Instagram. Yeah, just Darren's Book Club. You click it, you're following it. I usually put at the top title the book that's going to be coming up for the month, and then I'll just drop some quotes. I encourage people to kind of engage with me and comment, tell me about some things they like. I'd love for it to evolve. I'd love for it to be a space for the development of young men and women, and especially athletes who are transitioning, if they're looking for tips and tools or bodies of work for them to take a look at and evolve quicker. While it's here and it's available.
Awesome. I'm following it. I need to start checking out some of the books you've been reading too, and see like what's that about. Do you focus on like just self-improvement books, or like are it's a different range?
You're on it. I feel as though we're connected because you just read my mind back. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the books could be perceived as spiritual books, and in a way, they are. Um, but just to clarify that, in terms of the spiritual element, it's just a realizing that there's a baseline foundation of tips and tools and ways to act and interact in the world. And these books are kind of are basically the core essences of those interactions, whether it's in dating relationships or finance and principles and things like that. So it um, there are ways to eliminate the fog of too much information and get you into a baseline space where you can grab that information and then be able to apply it readily. And that's what's really important about these types of books. So it is in the nonfiction space, and again, it could be considered spiritual, etc., depending on where your views are at. And yeah, it's beginning the practice of maybe 5 pages in an evening, and then you know that adds up over time.
So y'all, everybody, you heard it. Go follow Darren's Book Club on Instagram and check out some of the books that they previously done, and look out for the new books that he has that he posts on a monthly basis. Correct?
Yeah, I've been doing it for well over a year now. So It's been basically one book a month. There's some videos on there where I give some indication of what you can expect, some of the things that I've learned, and moving from there. I'm hoping with the Darren's Book Club space that it will continue to evolve as I talk with athletes, either in person or through presentation, being able to point them there and allowing that to be a space for ongoing learning and development. I'm kind of tossing around the idea of getting into a fictional space, but perhaps in time, right? There's a big vision down the road, but just got to keep walking the path, right?
Right. And also make sure y'all connect, follow, and stay connected with him as well for resources. He's working on trying to build a program that helps athletes transition pro college. You also do you do talks at schools and things like that?
Yeah, in fact, I've been talking with student athletes since my days in high school and college, as well as in and around the NFL time frame and in the transition. So yeah, it's important for me just to get in front of them and enliven them a bit, give them some perspective about opportunities or where the future will lie for them.
I wish you like many blessings and good luck on that, because there's not like a lot of programs and resources out there. So I think what you're doing is amazing, and keep going, like keep going.
Thank you.
Anybody that's out there watching and listening, make sure y'all connect with him. If you're going through some of those similar things, trying to transition from sports to life, or having any issues, maybe it's something that he's been through that maybe he can help you get through. So
Yeah,
don't ever be afraid to reach out.
yeah, great message, and thank you for opening that up. I definitely welcome anybody who has some questions, who wants to engage, follow me on my journey, and see what other tools become available. As I said on the book club, get involved with that. Give yourself the challenge of getting into a book, and let's discuss it. Let's kind of go on that journey together. And like anything you try that's new, it may be big, it may be challenging, but it's taking that first step, and with that added encouragement and the next step and the next steps, your life
Mhm.
drastically transforms. So
It's like feeling that fear and then doing it anyway. Just take that step.
yeah. Ooh.
So my last question, and then we're gonna close out, would be, who are like the three people that you would say inspire you like the most, or the most influential to you? Who's been the three, the top three?
The top three. Wow, there are some incredible names out there. I gotta say, my mother, having raised us three boys. Yeah, I'm actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
shouts out to mom for real.
yeah, my
Moms
my
are
mother
amazing.
absolutely. Yeah, and I would say just really close friends. I got a best friend who's been very supportive of my journey and has helped me, articulate myself more clearly in the world. The experiences that I've been through, where I'm at now, and how I want to. This show is an example of that, and the time we're spending together. So, yeah, my mother, my best friend, and yeah, there has to be somebody who's really far up there. I mean, there's so many people. Just choose one. I'm really interested in Dr. Jordan Peterson actually right now. I read a lot of his books, and he's psychoanalyst, and that's part of the I think the actor and the self growth and that kind of aspect of my life. And so he kind of filters away a lot of um, the excess fat of the human experience, and attempts to articulate it in a clear way that's easy to understand. So for right now, he would be one of those people as well. And his book is in my book club as well. So yeah.
Y'all got to check that out. Like, really, seriously, go follow him. Check out all the amazing things that he's doing. You can follow Darrin on mostly all social channels at Darrin Charles. On IG, it's Darrin.Charles. Um, all of those are also linked in the description of the show. And you can also check this out later on today. If you weren't able to catch it live, it'll be available on all listening platforms, on your favorite podcast platform. So you can go back and check it out. Check out all the amazing resources, and just follow him. He's doing some pretty amazing things, like really.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Very kind
And so,
words.
do you have anything you want to say? Closing out any?
Yeah. I'd like to really thank you for reaching out for this opportunity to be with you here today. Um, I know you have the kids who are athletes and have aspirations for amazing things, and I know you're really taking your life on, and you know penetrating the world with your gifts. And so I'm just really proud of that for you, and for anybody else who's out there who wants to continue to expand and who's looking for resources. There's people out here who really want to help you and support you, and be vulnerable, say the hello, make the extra effort, be kind to people out there. It all really does come back to you.
I agree. I agree. So we both hope you guys have an amazing day. Make sure you
Yes.
follow Darren again, like I said. Check us both out. Links are in the description. And be blessed and continue working on yourself and improving.
That's right.
We'll see you later. Well, thanks for tuning in with me, guys, and kicking it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you found it useful. Well, thanks for tuning in with me, guys, and kicking it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you found it useful and you want to see more videos like this or more interviews, you know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so you don't miss my next video.